Upfront and Outspoken with Bob Williams. If you love the Constitution,
man is not free unless government is limited.
If you love freedom,
as government expands, liberty contracts.
If you believe in personal responsibility, if you believe America is still the greatest nation on earth, then get ready for an experience you'll never forget. This is Upfront and Outspoken. Here's your host, Bob Williams.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
And welcome back. This is, of course, Upfront Outspoken. Of course, I'm your host, Bob Williams. Glad to have you along with me on this Friday. We're going to forego the cold weather. I'm not even going to bother reading the weather. Oh, on the phone with me, of course, is my usual. I'm not going to say normal because he's going to have a smart-ass remark, and I'm not going to say, everything else. My usual Friday guest, host of Passionate Justice, which you hear here tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm talking about Jonathan Wolfman. Good morning once again, Jonathan.
Good morning, Bob. Good morning to everybody out there from rather cold Maryland.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I got up this morning and I'm, even though my house was heated, I'm sitting there going, brr, it's cold, and I got my heater set at 68 degrees. But anyhow, the reason I got you on, Jonathan, well, before we came on air, you were talking about an article that you recently wrote. You want to tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. The Israelis, this is about Hamas and Israel. The Israelis were so widely condemned at the end of the summer for annexing, about 2,000 feet of land into the West Bank because of terrorist activity, and the entire world came down on Israel's head about that. People, I'm sure, out there in Radio Land are going to remember that. Well, you know what you guys don't know? I'm going to tell you what you guys don't know. It happened a week and a half ago. Egyptian soldiers with helicopters and cranes and wrecking balls incurred about 2,000 feet into Gaza. Why? Because Hamas hired out ISIS-related terrorists and killed 31 Egyptian soldiers and other civilians. And Egypt, just like Israel, said, enough of this crap. And so they decided they needed a buffer zone. And the difference between when Israel did it and when Egypt did it? You all heard about it when Israel did it because it was condemned in every capital in the world. But when Egyptian soldiers did it, you heard, wait for it, nothing.
Yeah, in fact, I didn't even hear anything about it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Some German newspapers picked it up from some Egyptian newspapers. It was verified, and it actually happened. Over 1,000 Palestinian families in Gaza were told, you have a few hours to get your belongings together and get the hell out of here because your homes are going to be sacked. They're going to be razed. Now, nothing was stolen. They weren't there to make a pinch of any kind, but they decided that because satellite technology had shown the Egyptian army that, guess what? There were at least 30 tunnels, just like the Israelis found, but then, of course, the Hamas terrorists denied, no, we don't have tunnels, and even if we do, they're just for eggs and bread and milk. Yeah, right. Well, the Egyptian army also has satellite technology. The Israelis and the Americans are not the only ones in the world who have that, and the Egyptians, with their satellite technology, found all these tunnels, and guess what was in them? It wasn't bread and eggs and milk. It was bombs, and it was guns, and it was ammo. The whole point is, and I've said this on this show before, people, You know, one of the things you never heard much of during the Israeli-Hamas war was a lot of condemnation from a lot of Arab countries. The condemnation you heard was from the West against Israel. But the Arab countries are happy to allow Israel to do their dirty work against organizations such as Hamas. They know exactly what they are.
Wow. Wow. Like I said, I watch the news feeds every morning, and I didn't see anything about that. So I'm at a loss. I mean, you're probably more informed on that than I am today, which is unusual, folks, because generally
We haven't before any of us, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, this is insane. Here we have a German newspaper, if I understood you right, a German newspaper picks up on the story that should have been national news here, and yet, guess what? We're not hearing anything about this.
Yeah, and the Egyptian military and the Egyptian government was not shy about confirming what had happened to some of the European and the German press. They said, yeah, it happened. I mean, they didn't go making public relations statements about it, but when they were asked about it, they said, yeah, this is what we did. This is why we did it. We're tired of our people being picked off like flies by Hamas, so we are making an incursion. We're knocking down those houses. We told the people you have a few hours to get out. We didn't kill any of them. We just told them to get out. And of course, they're screaming and crying. What I think has to happen is at some point, the ordinary Palestinian family has to say to Hamas, get the hell off our backs.
I agree with that. And speaking of getting on backs, and I'm gonna change gears here a little bit on you, Jonathan. Yesterday, I had a very enlightening host. He is a expatriate of Iraq. He learned the Muslim religion growing up until his parents sent him abroad to do study in engineering. He himself learned about the Quran, and he did a lot of research. Over 30 years worth of research this gentleman did. I'm talking about none other than I Q Al-Rassooli. I had him on yesterday, and I must say, I was very enlightened. I mean, I've had him on before on previous shows, and it always amazes me about IQ in that he has this $100,000 challenge out there, and in over 800 interviews, 850 I believe he said yesterday, not one person dared him on his challenge. And what he's saying is Islam and the Quran are not what they appear to be, and that the American people and others around the world are being lied to. And I'm catching flack from this.
Well, what is he saying that it really represents?
Basically what I've been saying, that it's a book of hate about jihad, about wiping out the infidel, and he was very explicit upon it, and he proved it with facts. He proved it with chapter and verse right out of the Quran. Jonathan,
It sounds to me that what IQ is wanting to get people to understand is that when certain Islamic sources say, oh, these terrorists really don't represent us, when those terrorist organizations say, wait a minute, we are the true Islam, it seems to me that IQ is saying, yeah, that's right, they are the true Islam.
That's right. That's exactly what he's saying. And earlier today and yesterday, right after the interview, I decided to do something that I normally don't do. I tried adding a little fuel to the fire, shall you say. And what I did is I took a copy. We have a YouTube video I made up of my conversation with IQ. And what I did is I took that link. I went to several Facebook pages of Islamic mosques and Islamic associations in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Now these are all stations, areas surrounding our station right here in Carrollton. Now I posted my comments, about the interview. I didn't say specifically, but I, said that he was classified as a traitor. And here in the USA, he'd be listed as a whistleblower. So I posted that YouTube video link on these Facebook pages. And do you know what kind of response I got?
Tell me.
Well, 98% of them not only deleted it, but got angry at me for posting it to begin with. How dare you post this on it? And yet these are the same people. These are the same people who want their First Amendment rights upheld. The right of religion, right of freedom of speech. Well, isn't it my right as a journalist to say, okay, I have the ability of free speech, so why can't I post something contradictory to you and say, okay, if you don't like it, come on air, challenge IQ.
That's right. It's always been the case, I think, that some of the people, not all, but some of the people who scream the loudest about First Amendment speech rights, they really are, as you really said it, Bob, insincere, because they really mean it. My speech rights. Oh, your speech rights? Maybe not so much.
Yeah, what happened to my speech rights? Am I not entitled to speak my piece? I do it every day, right here, every day, Monday through Friday. 6 o'clock in the morning, you hear me voicing my opinion. But, and that's my right under the First Amendment. So these groups, and it just amazed me, how fast it was before I got little postings, on my messages on Facebook. You can't do this. This is not true. He's lying. So I turned around. I turned the table around and said, okay, if you say he's lying, then in 2 weeks, come on Skype. Challenge him.
That's right.
I haven't heard a thing.
Don't like what IQ is saying, get on, debate with him, show people your point of view, but don't you bloody dare demand that Bob Williams or anyone else not say what he thinks. What the heck kind of country do you think you live in?
And here's the other thing to this. IQ has a challenge out there. Now, when I brought that challenge up, a lot of people are like, wow, he has a $100,000 challenge. And, there are a couple conditions to that in order for you to win this. And the major one is prove with the Quran that what IQ says about the Quran is wrong. Prove it in chapter and verse that Islam is not a religion of hate, is a cult. And IQ calls Islam a cult, not a religion. Prove to IQ in chapter and verse that he's wrong, and you can win $100,000. 850 appearances on radio, nobody's won it.
Well, that tells you something. And, it almost doesn't matter whether or not you can prove that it is or is not a religion of hate. Because if the major proponents in the world of what they say is Islam take swords and lop people's heads off.
Which I might add, I don't mean to interrupt you there, Jonathan, but which I might add is in the Quran. It's in there.
Yeah. Kill the infidel.
And it does say behead. IQ pointed that out yesterday. And he did it with chapter and verse.
Yeah, so therefore, you see, when ISIS does that, and they say we are following Quran, chances are they're not lying.
You're right. You're right, and it was, like I said, it just blew my mind. It just blew my mind that, the second I posted it on, and I'm going to say it right out, folks. You're going to get mad at me. It was the Islamic Association, right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yes, I'm going to name you. I'm calling you out. I posted it there. I posted it on one in Arkansas. I posted it on a couple of other ones. So yes, I'm calling them out. If you do not agree with what I say, come on Skype in 2 weeks. All you got to do is type KKRP 1610 in your contact list. When IQ comes on here in 2 weeks, I dare you to take up that challenge. Now, Jonathan, we got about 3.5 minutes here, and I definitely want to get to a couple things from you. What are we going to be looking for in your show tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow, one of the major pieces on the show has to do with all the cities in the United States that have ordinances, regulations, laws against people going out and feeding homeless people. There was there are 3 Florida cities, for example, that have made it illegal to, in public, feed the homeless. And one of them is Fort Lauderdale. And a 90-year-old man, Albert something, and I'm blocking his last name, a 90-year-old man who has been a homeless advocate for many, many, many years, was arrested and thrown into prison for several hours. He's been fined up to $2,000 for doing nothing more than feeding the homeless, and 2 pastors that he was with were also similarly arrested. There are at least 31 cities, at least 31. Now, some distinctions must be made. For example, Seattle, Washington, and I'll be bringing this up, Seattle, Washington wants to make sure that what homeless people are fed is not dangerous or poisoned or scrub food.
Right.
And so they do have regulations, and many, many more than 31 cities have regulations about how food is distributed. And some homeless advocates are angry about that. I'm not. I think that when Seattle says you just can't set up hot food carts without being licensed, that's probably a good thing, because licensing means that there's health inspection involved. So you have to make that distinction. But, the point that I'm going to be making on tomorrow's show is that there's a difference between helping the homeless and having a war on the poor and the homeless. We've got to do something a little more thoughtful than simply arrest and throw into the pokey people who go out, 90-year-old guys in Fort Lauderdale going out and feeding the homeless, and they get arrested. Something's wrong. Yeah,
that's definitely the case, because, the homeless people deserve a little bit of dignity. I mean, granted, they're homeless. A lot of them are due to mental issues or whatever, but there are a lot of guys out there, gals out there, that have families that are trying to make it on a minimum wage job. They can't. They either lost their apartment because they had a tough time. And there are a lot of homeless people out there. I'm not going to say at one time I thought I was going to be homeless. I came that close at one point in my life. And I can sympathize with those who are homeless, because I came within a hair's breadth of losing my apartment, losing my car. This is way back when I was in college, but I came that close.
Bob, and folks out there, it is often tied to health care. We don't bring this enough. One of the reasons that you have to have a decent, at least partially funded government health care system, even if Obamacare isn't the right one, but you have to have something, because homelessness, that being on the edge is so often tied to an unforeseen medical calamity within a family that can wipe you out and then put you on the street.
Exactly. Jonathan, unfortunately, our time is up. Oh, my. Every time I get you on here, we have some great conversation, and it goes by too damn fast, if you ask me. Maybe I'm going to, I don't know, get you on a little earlier, and we'll take up an hour, because usually we can fill that hour with no problem. But once again, I want to remind everybody out there, Jonathan has a show right here on the Starcom Radio Network. It airs every Saturday at 2 p.m. following our latest edition, Walter Davis, and Progress in the World, which makes its actual debut tomorrow at 12 p.m. Jonathan, once again, tell everybody how they can go about getting your book.
Oh, sure. Passionate Justice, a progressive memoir and essays, is available real cheap on Amazon. Pick it up. It does make a good stocking stuffer.
All right, Jonathan. Hang on the phone for just a minute.
You bet.
Everybody else, with that, it's telling me I got to get out of here. Stay tuned, because Ed Till will be coming at you right after NPR News until 4 o'clock. Until Monday morning, 6 a.m., this is Bob Williams. Take care of yourselves.